In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath between night and morning, you find yourself startled awake by a dream that clings to your mind like fog on a winter's day. Your heart races as fragments of the vision slip away, but one image remains burned into your consciousness, a great shadow spreading across the land like spilled ink, consuming forests and villages in its endless advance. You lie in your simple bed, listening to the familiar sounds of Thornhaven stirring to life outside your window, yet nothing feels familiar anymore. The village has always been a place of peace, nestled in the rolling hills where three rivers converge and ancient oaks stand as silent guardians. Your entire life has unfolded within these safe boundaries, where the greatest concerns were whether the harvest would be plentiful and if the winter would arrive harsh or mild. But this morning, as soft golden light begins to creep across your wooden floorboards, you feel that something fundamental has shifted in the world. You rise slowly and dress in your everyday clothes, though your hands tremble slightly as you button them. The dream will not release you. You make your way downstairs to the common room, where the smell of freshly baked bread should comfort you as it always has, but instead it seems to mock the normalcy of this morning. It is there that Aldrich finds you. The old scholar appears at your door just as the sun breaks fully over the eastern hills, his weathered face grave and lined with exhaustion. You have known him your entire life as the gentle keeper of knowledge, the man who tended the small library in the village center and told stories to children on winter evenings. But today his eyes carry a weight you have never seen before. He takes your hand without greeting and leads you to the small study adjoining the common room. His fingers are ice cold despite the warming morning. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely above a whisper, as though the very words might summon something dreadful. The Starstone, he tells you, has awakened. You have heard whispers of this artifact in old stories, tales that Aldrich himself once told as fireside entertainment. A stone of immeasurable darkness, forged in the volcanic heart of the world in an age now forgotten, wielded by a tyrant whose name had been deliberately erased from history. For thousands of years, it has remained hidden, locked away in chambers so deep that no living person knew their location. But now, Aldrich explains with terrible certainty, something has begun to stir it from its slumber. The darkness you saw in your dream is real. It is spreading from the far reaches of the realm, consuming everything in its path. Entire settlements have vanished. The great kingdom of Ethermore, which stood for 500 years, has fallen to shadow in a matter of weeks. And it is growing stronger with each passing day because the Starstone feeds on the despair and suffering it creates, growing ever more potent. Aldrich's hands shake as he reveals the only truth that offers any hope. There is one place where the Starstone can be unmade, one location where its power can be unraveled and destroyed forever. The volcanic heart of the world, buried deep beneath the mountains that separate the known realm from the unexplored wasteland beyond. No journey in living memory has succeeded in reaching such a place. The mountains are treacherous beyond measure, and the path is guarded by things that have not seen daylight since the age when the stone was first forged. But the alternative is the slow consumption of everything. It is the creeping shadow that will eventually reach even peaceful Thornhaven, swallowing it whole and leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. Aldrich looks at you with eyes full of sorrow and unexpected hope. He believes you are the one who must undertake this impossible task. Others will come forward, he says, companions who have been touched by the same visions, who have heard the same urgent call from forces beyond their understanding. Together you might succeed where any individual would certainly fail. You spend the remainder of the morning preparing, gathering what littles you can carry. Your neighbors go about their daily routines, unaware that this may be the last morning of their ordinary lives. As the sun rises over Thornhaven one final time, you shoulder your pack and step toward an uncertain destiny, knowing that everything you hold dear depends on what comes next. The Wanderer's Rest sits where three ancient roads converge, its stone walls worn smooth by centuries of travel and countless footsteps seeking shelter. The inn breathes with the weight of history, each wooden beam groaning softly as though remembering the stories it has witnessed. You push open the heavy oak door and feel the warmth of the hearth embrace you like a whispered welcome. The common room glows with amber firelight, casting dancing shadows across the worn floorboards that creak beneath your boots. At a table near the center of the room, you notice them gathering. A tall woman with silver streaked through her dark hair sits, with hands folded carefully before her. She wears the faded symbols of the old priesthood on her weathered cloak, and her eyes hold the knowing gaze of someone who has spent lifetimes in quiet contemplation. Beside her stands a younger figure, lean and restless, fingers drumming nervously against the wooden surface. His traveling clothes are travel-stained but well-maintained, and a bow of exquisite craftsmanship leans against the chair at his side. Across from them sits a figure cloaked entirely in shadow despite the brightness of the fire. You cannot quite make out their features, yet something about their presence commands respect, a weight of ancient knowledge and unspoken strength. Next to this mysterious stranger, a dwarf with a magnificent braided beard the color of burnished copper traces the rim of a clay mug with thick, calloused fingers. His eyes are kind but weary, as though they have seen too much of the world's suffering. As the evening deepens and more travelers filter through the door, drawn by forces none can fully explain, the group begins to speak. The priestess tells of visions that would not let her rest, dreams of a great darkness spreading like spilled ink across the land. The young archer shares his tale of a village consumed by shadow, of loved ones lost to an encroaching evil he could not fight alone. The mysterious cloaked figure remains largely silent, yet occasionally nods as if confirming what the others speak, as if they have walked these paths before. The dwarf's voice is rough but gentle when he finally speaks, sharing the burden that drove him from his beloved halls beneath the mountains. He speaks of ancient forges where weapons of light once burned bright, of knowledge passed down through generations, all pointing to this moment, this gathering. He tells of the Starstone, the artifact of terrible power, and how it must be carried to the volcanic heart of the world where it can be unmade forever. You find yourself drawn closer to the fire, pulled toward this unlikely fellowship, as though invisible threads had always connected you to their destinies. Each of them turns to regard you, and without a word being spoken, you understand that you too have been called. The priestess gestures to an empty chair, and you sit, feeling the weight of significance settle upon your shoulders like a mantle you never sought but somehow always knew you would wear. As you listen to their words weaving together, you realize that each person here has been broken by the darkness in their own way. Each carries scars visible and invisible. Yet in this moment, gathered in the flickering warmth of the wanderer's rest, something shifts. The isolation that has defined your individual journeys begins to dissolve. The priestess reaches out and places her hand upon the archer's shoulder. The dwarf stands and clasps forearms with the cloaked figure in a gesture of ancient brotherhood. They turn their attention toward you, and in their eyes you see not judgment or pity, but recognition. The road ahead stretches long and perilous. The mountains must be crossed. Treacherous terrain lies waiting. The darkness grows stronger with each passing day. Yet here in this moment, with strangers becoming companions, with solitary hearts beginning to beat in unison, something shifts in the balance between despair and hope. The fire crackles and pops, sending sparks spiraling upward like tiny stars ascending toward the heavens. As candlelight flickers across their gathered faces, each member of this unlikely fellowship silently vows to stand together against whatever darkness awaits them in the world beyond. The forest welcomes you not with open arms, but with a subtle shift in the air, a sense that you have crossed into a realm where nature's rules bend to forces far older than memory. The fellowship has walked for 3 days through increasingly dense woodland, watching the sunlight grow thinner and stranger, filtered now through layers of leaves so ancient they seem to whisper with their own intelligence. The ground beneath their feet feels soft and yielding, as though the earth itself breathes beneath them. Birds have ceased their songs. Even the wind has grown quiet, moving through the canopy with deliberate purpose rather than random gusts. Kale, the ranger who walks at the front, feels it first. A sensation like invisible fingers brushing against the edges of his mind. He pauses, holding up one hand to signal the others. His weathered face shows no alarm, but his gray eyes have narrowed with concentration. Behind him, young Mira shifts nervously, her hand instinctively moving to the pendant at her throat. She feels it too, that peculiar tingling at the base of her skull, like someone has spoken her name from very far away. The whispers begin so quietly that each member of the fellowship believes at first they are imagining them. Fragments of words, half-formed sentences that seem to originate not from any external source, but from within their own minds. To Kale, the woods seem to hiss of his failures as a protector, reminding him of those he could not save in years long past. To Mira, the voices speak in tones that sound disturbingly like her mother's voice, questioning whether she is strong enough for this burden, whether she will betray them all when darkness grows too deep. Thuron, the scholar whose rounded frame and gentle demeanor have made him seem the least suited for this journey, hears accusations that his knowledge is worthless, that his presence slows them all, that they would be better served leaving him behind. He stumbles, one hand reaching out to steady himself against an impossibly large oak tree. The bark feels warm beneath his palm, and for a moment he cannot pull away. Then the voices grow sharper, more insistent. They turn upon each other like serpents, each whisper designed to create fractures in the bonds formed just nights ago in that candlelit room. Kale is told that Mira mocks him behind his back, that his age makes him a liability. Mira hears that the scholar resents her youth, that Thuron has been sent by enemies to spy. Accusations multiply like shadows, each one finding the tender places where doubt naturally lives in every heart. The fellowship stops walking. They stand in a loose circle, each member withdrawing slightly from the others, suspicion blooming where trust had only recently taken root. Kale's hand moves to his sword. Mira's voice hardens as she asks why they should trust a man of the city with secrets of ancient power. Thuron speaks of returning, of the foolishness of this quest, his words twisted by the forest's insidious magic into something that sounds like betrayal. But something breaks through the corruption. It is not a word, but rather a memory. Kale recalls Thuron's hand reaching out to steady him when a ravine nearly claimed him. Mira remembers the way the scholar sat with her during a fever, his cool hands on her forehead, his gentle voice speaking of hope. Thuron thinks of how Kale and Mira stood back to back with him when wolves circled their camp, how they fought not for glory but for each other. The whispers scream in protest as the three draw closer together, their hands joining, their resolve hardening. They speak no grand declarations, but simple truths. They name what they have witnessed in each other. They acknowledge the fear, but refuse to let it destroy what they have begun to build. The fellowship stands against the forest's ancient magic with nothing but their connection, their willingness to see through the lies. When silence falls at last and the corrupting whispers fade like morning mist, the fellowship emerges changed, their bonds tested but ultimately strengthened by what they have endured together. High above the world, where clouds gather like soft wool and the air tastes of starlight, the tower of Crystalmere rises from stone that has stood since the world was young. The fellowship climbs the winding stairs with weary legs, their footsteps echoing softly against walls of pale marble that seem to glow with an inner light. The tower is quiet, peaceful after the trials of the mountain passes below. As you ascend higher, the air grows cooler, tinged with the mineral scent of ancient stone and something else, something timeless and knowing. At the tower's pinnacle, you find her waiting. The keeper of Crystalmere is neither young nor old. her appearance shifting subtly as candlelight dances across her ageless face. Her robes shimmer like morning dew, and her eyes hold the depth of centuries. When she speaks, her voice is warm as honey and gentle as falling rain. She does not ask how you came or why. Instead, she gestures to cushioned seats arranged around a hearth where flames burn blue and silver, casting dancing shadows that seem to tell stories of their own. As you settle into this sanctuary, she begins to speak of the Starstone, not as a weapon or a curse, but as a memory made manifest. The Keeper tells you that the Starstone was never meant to exist in physical form. Long ago, when the world was still learning to hold light and shadow in balance, a great sorrow was born from despair and neglect. This sorrow took shape and became the stone, containing within it all the darkness that mortals had ever harbored. It is a vessel, she explains, and like all vessels, it can be emptied, but only in the place where all things are born anew, the volcanic heart at the world's center, where ancient fires still remember the moment of creation. She shows you maps drawn on parchment so old it feels like silk, tracing routes that wind through forgotten passages beneath the earth. She speaks of 3 trials that guard the path to the volcanic heart, tests that are not cruel but necessary. The first is the trial of reflection, where you must face the truth of who you truly are, stripped of pride and pretense. The second is the trial of release, where you must surrender the things you cling to most desperately, understanding that some burdens were never meant to be carried forever. The third is the trial of union, where your fellowship must move as one spirit in many bodies, bound by purpose rather than fear. As she speaks, the Keeper's hands move with grace, sketching symbols in the air that linger like phosphorescent trails. She tells you that the artifact you carry is already weakening, for it draws strength from despair and denial. Each moment you move toward your purpose, its power diminishes. She assures you that you have been chosen not because you are the strongest or the wisest, but because you are willing to change, to grow, to sacrifice what must be sacrificed. The Keeper offers you rest in her tower for one night, and you accept with gratitude. In the morning, she provides you with supplies for the journey ahead, provisions that seem to nourish both body and spirit, water that tastes of clarity and peace, and a pendant carved from crystal that holds a fragment of the tower's light. She tells you this light will guide you through the darkest passages, not by showing you the way forward, but by helping you see what is true. As you prepare to leave, the Keeper places a hand gently on each of your shoulders in blessing. She speaks words in a language older than kingdoms, syllables that resonate in your chest and settle into your bones as comfort and certainty. She reminds you that you do not journey alone, that the very stones beneath your feet remember the light from before darkness came, and they will support your steps. The descent from the tower is gentle, unhurried. The clouds part before you like curtains being drawn back, revealing the path that stretches toward distant mountains, where volcanic smoke rises like a prayer. With the Keeper's words burning bright in your hearts like a beacon, you depart the tower knowing the path ahead is treacherous, but at least now you understand what must be done. The ground beneath your feet tells stories of tremendous violence, cracked stone, twisted earth, and monuments broken by forces that once shook the very foundations of the world. You walk slowly, deliberately, your fellowship moving like shadows across the shattered valleys, each step measured and thoughtful. The sky above is muted, a pale gray that neither brightens with true dawn nor darkens with genuine dusk, suspended instead in a timeless state of perpetual twilight that weighs upon your shoulders like a heavy cloak. To your left, enormous pillars of carved stone rise from the earth, their surfaces weathered and eroded by centuries of wind and rain. You can barely make out the inscriptions that once adorned them, faded glyphs and symbols from a language dead perhaps 1,000 years. Your guide, an elder scholar from the tower, traces a trembling finger across the ancient marks, whispering words you cannot quite hear. His eyes are distant, reflecting knowledge that perhaps he wishes he did not possess. The pillars stand like silent sentinels, guardians of secrets the living world has largely forgotten. As you venture deeper into the valleys, you discover the remnants of dwellings, structures that must once have sheltered, thriving communities. Walls crumble into dust at your passing. Empty doorways gape like wounds. You find pottery shards arranged as if frozen mid-tumble, and you wonder about the hands that shaped them, the voices that once echoed through these now silent streets. A child's toy lies half buried in sand, a carved horse with wheels. Someone's beloved possession, perhaps lost in whatever cataclysm befell this place. The desolation presses against your mind. This was not simply destruction, but obliteration, a erasure so complete that it feels personal. Your fellowship pauses at the center of what might once have been a great plaza, and you all stare upward at the remains of a colossal statue. Only the legs remain, vast stone pillars that tower above you. You cannot see where the head once was, cannot imagine the scale of whatever force toppled such a monument. The stonework shows scorch marks, charring that no mere time could have caused. As evening approaches, though you cannot quite tell where the light is fading from, you discover something that breaks through the overwhelming sense of abandonment. A vault, partially collapsed but still standing, carved deep into the hillside. Inside, protected by the earth itself, are records. Tablets of stone, carefully arranged on stone shelves, covered in the same ancient script as the pillars. Your scholar examines them with shaking hands, reading passages aloud in a whisper. The tablets speak of a power that rose from beneath the mountains, something that the ancient peoples called the Devourer. They describe a war, a desperate struggle against forces that seemed endless and merciless. They tell of the creation of artifacts meant to contain this power, safeguards put in place by those who came before. The accounts become increasingly frantic toward the end, the carving more hurried and desperate. The final tablet simply reads, "We have failed." The seal breaks. We commit ourselves to shadow, hoping that one day strength shall rise to finish what we could not. You stand among these broken people's last words, feeling the weight of history pressing down upon you like stone. This darkness you fight is not new. This struggle has echoed through ages. Your enemy is ancient beyond measure, and those who came before you, those who left these warnings carved in stone, they too faced overwhelming odds and fell short. The sun finally descends beyond the broken horizon, and you make your way to camp among the remains of ancient buildings. Your fires seem small against the vast darkness, fragile and temporary. Yet as you sit in the flickering light, reading the tablets again by firelight, something crystallizes within you. Every marking, every carved warning, every scattered artifact tells you something vital about the nature of your enemy. As you make camp among the broken stones of a civilization long forgotten, you realize that understanding your enemy's past may be the key to defeating them in the present. The fortress rises before you like a weathered fist, its stones still bearing the scars of battles fought long ago, yet its walls still stand strong against the approaching darkness. You have arrived at Greymark just as the sun bleeds crimson across the western horizon, and already you can feel the weight of what is to come pressing against your chest like a stone. The ancient gates creak open at your approach, and within the courtyard, you find defenders who have been waiting for this moment since the darkness began to spread. Their eyes are hollow, their faces gaunt from sleepless nights of vigilance, yet something burns in their gaze, a determination that refuses to be extinguished. The later, a woman with silver threaded through her dark hair, grips your shoulder firmly and tells you that the corrupted forces have been seen moving through the northern passes. They will arrive before dawn. As evening descends, you work alongside the fortress inhabitants to prepare for the siege. Weapons are sharpened, oil is poured into great braziers positioned along the walls, and the wounded are moved to the innermost chambers where they might find some protection. The weight of preparation hangs heavy in the air, and conversations are kept low, almost reverent, as if speaking too loudly might summon the darkness prematurely. You find yourself moving through the fortress in a daze, helping where you can, your hands moving through the familiar motions of preparation while your mind drifts to the conversations you had about the enemy's origins. Understanding how they were created feels suddenly crucial, though you cannot yet articulate why. When night fully claims the sky, you gather with your companions in a chamber high in the fortress tower. Through the narrow windows, you can see nothing but darkness, yet you sense movement in that blackness, something vast and patient, waiting just beyond your perception. Sleep comes fitfully, if at all. When dawn arrives, it arrives not with light but with sound. The corrupted forces pour across the plains like a shadow given terrible form. They move with an eerie synchronization, their bodies bent at angles that should be impossible, their voices raised in a unified shriek that chills you to your deepest core. The battle erupts along every wall simultaneously, and suddenly all the preparation crystallizes into desperate action. Fire rains down from the battlements. Arrows fly in thick clouds. Spears thrust through gaps in the defensive barriers. You find yourself fighting alongside your companions, weapons in hand, your body moving with an instinct born of necessity. Time becomes strange and unreliable, moments stretch into eternities, while hours compress into what feels like mere minutes. You see your fellowship members moving with a grace and unity that surpasses what you have managed in all your journey together. There is no hesitation, no doubt. Each person knows their role, knows their companions, trusts in the strength of those beside them. The turning point comes when you recall what you learned of the enemy's creation, that they were once something else, something that was twisted by the artifact's influence. You shout this knowledge to your companions, and something shifts in how you fight. It is no longer a battle against monsters, but against a tragedy made manifest. This knowledge gives you an unexpected weapon, not in terms of steel or flame, but in terms of purpose. You fight not just to survive, but to free these corrupted beings from their terrible existence. As afternoon claims the sky, the assault begins to falter. The corrupted forces retreat, pulling back toward the distant passes with an almost reluctant quality, as if they themselves feel the weight of what they are forced to do. The fortress defenders sound their horns in triumph, a sound that echoes across the plains like the cry of hope itself. In the aftermath, you discover supplies that will sustain your journey forward, food, water, and ancient maps that show passages through the mountains you had not known existed. The fortress leader presses these into your hands with a solemn blessing, understanding that you must continue onward. As the dust settles and the fires burn low, the fellowship stands victorious but forever changed, knowing that greater trials lie ahead and that they can truly make a difference. The river Silverstream flows like liquid moonlight, beautiful and cold, and at its crossing point, a decision must be made that will echo through the remainder of your journey. The fellowship has arrived at the water's edge as twilight descends upon the ancient landscape. Behind them, the forests of the western kingdoms fade into purple shadow. Before them, the silver stream rushes with a voice like distant thunder, swollen from recent rains in the high peaks. The current moves with terrible strength, carrying with it the weight of winter's melting snows. On the far bank, perhaps 200 yards of treacherous terrain, lies the pathway to the volcanic mountains where their final destiny awaits. But between here and there, the water churns with a power that seems almost sentient, almost aware of the burden they carry. The Starstone rests wrapped in cloth within its sacred vessel, and all of them know without speaking that if it touches these waters, something irreversible will occur. The ancient texts were clear on this matter. The Starstone cannot be crossed over water while immersed, cannot be carried through currents where the earth's lifeblood flows. They must find another way, or they must wait for the waters to recede, and time is a luxury they no longer possess. The darkness that follows them grows deeper with each passing day. One among them steps forward, moving to the water's edge with quiet determination. Their face bears the marks of the journey undertaken, weathered and wise, eyes reflecting the gathering starlight. In their voice, there is neither fear nor hesitation, only the calm acceptance of one who has understood their purpose long before this moment arrived. They speak words that settle upon the others like snow, soft and heavy and inevitable. The plan unfolds in whispered tones. One member of the fellowship will cross the river first, drawing the attention of the water's guardians, the ancient spirits that dwell in the silver stream's depths. They will cross alone and emerge on the far bank, creating a path through the current's dangerous attention. Only then will the others be able to move swiftly and safely across, carrying the Starstone with them. It is a sacrifice clothed in logic, in necessity, in the terrible mathematics of survival that has become the language of their quest. As the hours pass, the chosen one wades into the water. The cold steals their breath, and the current grabs at their legs with urgent fingers. They move forward with each step deeper, slower, while the others watch from the stone banks. The water rises to their chest, their neck, their chin. They do not look back. They have said their farewells in glances and in the weight of silence shared over many nights. This is their gift to the fellowship, freely given and freely received. The water grows turbulent. Mist rises as if the river itself is awakening, as if ancient things are stirring in the depths below. For a moment, the figure in the water seems to hesitate, and the others hold their collective breaths. Then they continue forward, arms raised high, the Starstone held above the surface by careful hands. Step by aching step, they advance toward the far bank. The current strengthens, the mist thickens, and suddenly the water is filled with strange lights and sounds that belong to no natural river. When the others finally make their crossing, they move with desperate speed, guided by the sacrifice already made. They emerge on the far bank drenched and shaking, the Starstone still safe within its wrappings. They collapse on the cold stone, gasping for breath, waiting for the figure to emerge from the mist. But the silver stream has claimed what it was offered. The water settles, becoming beautiful and cold once more, a river of liquid moonlight that reveals nothing of the depths below. The fellowship gathers what remains of their supplies, their strength, their courage. They must move forward now. They cannot look back, though the weight of absence moves with them like a shadow. The path ahead stretches toward distant mountains, where fire burns beneath the earth. Though one voice is silenced at the water's edge, their memory becomes the flame that drives the fellowship forward, a reminder of the cost of this quest and the weight of what must be done. Deep beneath the surface, in darkness older than starlight, the caverns open before you like the mouth of something vast and breathing, filled with crystalline wonder and terrible secrets. The torches your fellowship carries seem almost insignificant here, their flames dancing against walls of stone that stretch upward into shadow beyond comprehension. Water drips from the ceiling in a rhythm as old as time itself, each drop echoing through the immensity like the heartbeat of the earth. You feel small in this place, humbled by the sheer scale of what lies beneath the world you know. The memory of your fallen companions still weighs upon your hearts as you descend deeper. Their sacrifice at the water's edge was not made lightly, and each step forward into these depths feels like a continuation of the promise you made to them. The darkness seems to acknowledge this burden, seeming almost respectful in how it parts before your procession. Around you, the cavern walls shimmer with veins of crystal that catch your torchlight and scatter it into 1,000 fragments of color. Some might have called it beautiful under different circumstances. Now it feels haunting, a reminder that beauty and danger often wear the same face in this ancient world. As you move through passages that human feet have never touched, you notice traces of something older than your kind. Carved into the stone are markings and symbols, remnants of the deep dwellers who once inhabited these spaces. Their structures still stand in places, though time and corruption have ravaged them. What were once proud halls of carved stone are now twisted and warped, covered in a slick substance that glows with an unsettling phosphorescence. This corruption spreads through the caverns like a disease, and you understand that it stems from the very darkness you are trying to destroy. Then you see them. The figures moving through the shadows are almost translucent, their forms barely holding together. These are the remnants of the deep dwellers, corrupted beyond recognition by the influence of the dark artifact you seek. Their wails echo through the caverns in frequencies that make your bones ache. Some of your fellowship want to turn back to find another way, but you know there is no other path. The passage you need lies deeper still, beyond these tortured spirits. Your fellowship presses forward with careful steps, moving silently when you can, speaking only in whispers when necessary. The corrupted ones seem drawn to sound, to vibration, to the essence of life itself. You avoid them where possible, skirting around them through narrower passages, choosing paths that wind between massive stalactite formations. Your guide, an old scholar who studied the ancient maps, points toward a glowing passage ahead. It is his knowledge that sustains you now, his belief that this journey has purpose. The deeper you go, the warmer the air becomes. You can smell something acrid and sulfurous drifting from far below, the promise of the volcanic heart that is your ultimate destination. The crystals in the walls grow larger and more numerous, casting increasingly bright light throughout the caverns. It is as though the world itself is guiding you toward your goal, illuminating your path step by step. You encounter a vast underground lake, its surface perfectly still and reflective, showing you an inverted image of the cavern's ceiling above. For a moment you pause, struck by the serene beauty of this place despite its corruption. Your fallen companion would have loved to see this, you think. They would have marveled at the ancient wonders that time had concealed here. As you navigate around the lake's edge, following a narrow path of smooth stone, the corrupted remnants of the deep dwellers grow fewer. Perhaps they cannot survive in places where the light grows too bright. Or perhaps the volcanic heart of the world itself repels them, just as it will repel the darkness you carry. Your steps become lighter, your breathing easier, as hope begins to kindle within your chests. Emerging from the depths with your hearts pounding and your spirits renewed, you see the glow of volcanic light ahead and know you are drawing ever closer to your final destination. The mountain rises before you like a sleeping god, its slopes shrouded in ash and shadow, and with each step closer, you feel the weight of malevolent intention pressing against your very soul. Behind you stretches the winding path through ravines and twisted forests, a journey that has consumed weeks of your life and worn your bodies thin. Before you lies the volcanic heart of the world, where the Starstone was born in fire and where it must return to be unmade. Your feet drag against the blackened earth, each step heavier than the last. The ash swirls around you in patterns that seem almost deliberate, almost sentient. It catches in your hair and settles on your clothes like the dust of ancient tombs. The air tastes of sulfur and something else, something that makes your throat tighten and your mind grow foggy. Around you, your companions move in silence, their faces etched with exhaustion and an emotion deeper than mere fatigue. The temptation arrives quietly at first, like a whisper you might have imagined. It suggests rest. Why continue climbing when you could turn back, could abandon this burden that has grown so impossibly heavy? No one would blame you. No one could judge you for choosing survival over sacrifice. The voice is smooth and reasonable, and it echoes in the hollows of your mind with terrible persuasiveness. Then comes another temptation, more insidious than the first. Power. The mountain offers you a bargain that settles into your consciousness like honey, sweet and sticky. The Starstone could be yours, not destroyed but claimed. With such power, you could reshape the kingdoms you have crossed. You could save the lands not through its destruction, but through its dominion. You could be savior and ruler both. The stone whispers of glory, of strength beyond measure, of a world remade according to your will. Your companions feel it too. You can see it in the way their eyes glaze momentarily before clearing again, in the small stumbles that might be weakness or might be the weight of their own internal battles. One of them pauses, turning to look back down the mountain, and for a terrible moment you wonder if they will abandon the quest. But then they press onward, pushing through the fog that clings to the mountainside. The landscape around you becomes increasingly surreal as you climb higher. Stones that could almost be faces emerge from the ash. Formations of dark rock that resemble grasping hands claw at the sky. The very ground beneath your feet seems to pulse with a heartbeat that is not your own, a rhythm that draws your own pulse toward synchronization. Your breathing becomes shallow. Your vision swims at the edges. The temptations grow more personal, more vicious. They remind you of losses you have suffered on this journey. They show you images of loved ones waiting at home, people who might be forgotten if you continue forward. They whisper that perhaps there is another way, a way that does not require you to walk into the volcano and face oblivion. Perhaps there is always another way, if you are only willing to compromise, to negotiate, to bend just slightly from your purpose. But with each whispered temptation, you feel also the weight of all that has brought you here. The kingdoms that have fallen to darkness, the innocents who have suffered, the magic that was sacrificed to bring you this far. Your companions, bound to you by oath and love, push forward despite their own exhaustion and fear. And you understand that to turn back now would be to render all of that meaningless, to transform sacrifice into waste. The volcanic peak draws nearer with each labored breath. You can see now the great crater that crowns the mountain, still smoking faintly in the dim light that filters through the ash clouds. The stone Starstone waits there, at the summit, still radiating its terrible call. Your legs burn. Your heart pounds. Every nerve in your body screams at you to stop, to rest, to consider other paths. But you do not stop. Your companions do not stop. As one, you continue climbing, step after aching step, your resolve hardening even as the mountain tests it with everything it possesses. With the mountain's dark call ringing in your ears and your resolve tested to its limit, you take your final steps toward the summit, knowing that nothing will ever be the same after what comes next. The crater opens before you like a wound in the world, rivers of molten stone flowing like blood, and at its center, the Starstone pulses with a darkness that seems to swallow all light. You stand at the edge of an abyss, your companions arrayed beside you, their faces illuminated by the terrible glow of what you have journeyed so far to destroy. The air shimmers with heat so intense that each breath feels like drawing flame into your lungs. The ground beneath your feet trembles with an ancient, primal rhythm. The Starstone rises from a pillar of black rock at the crater's heart, suspended above the churning magma, as if defying the very laws of nature. Its surface writhes with shadows that move independently of any light source, and from it emanates a presence so malevolent that your mind recoils from truly comprehending it. This is the source of all the suffering, all the darkness that has plagued the lands beyond the mountains. This is what has driven kingdoms to ruin and filled hearts with despair. As you take your first step down the treacherous slope toward the stone, the manifestation begins to take form. From the shadows coalescing around the Starstone emerges a figure of impossible proportions, a being of pure darkness given momentary shape. It has no true form, yet it wears the shape of something vast and ancient, something that predates the very mountains themselves. Its eyes, if eyes they can be called, burn with an intelligence so cold and terrible that you feel your courage waver. The entity speaks, not with a voice, but with a presence that crashes into your mind like a physical force. It offers promises of power beyond imagining, whispers seductive lies about what could be yours if you simply turn back, if you simply let the darkness reign. It tells you that the journey has broken you, that you are not worthy of this moment, that you should surrender to the inevitable. But you do not waver alone. Your companions stand firm beside you. The ranger draws her bow with steady hands. The scholar raises his staff, words of ancient power already forming on his lips. The warrior unsheathes a blade that glows with inner light. The healer closes her eyes and whispers prayers to every god and spirit that might listen. Together, you advance down the slope toward your destiny. The manifestation erupts in fury. It summons walls of flame that rise from the molten rivers below, sending waves of superheated air that threaten to incinerate everything in their path. It calls down ash and embers from the volcanic sky above. It shakes the earth itself, causing the ground to crack and shift beneath your feet. The very mountain seems to turn against you, as if the Starstone has commanded the world itself to keep you from your purpose. Yet you press forward. The ranger's arrows find their mark, piercing through the darkness and causing it to shriek with rage. The scholar's incantations build in power and intensity, weaving magic into a protective barrier that shields your fellowship from the worst of the manifestation's wrath. The warrior's blade meets shadow and substance alike, hacking at the form even as it tries to reform and overwhelm you. You feel exhaustion threatening to claim you. Your legs burn with effort. Your lungs scream for untainted air. The heat has blistered your skin, and the darkness presses against your mind, trying to crack your resolve. But you remember the villages you have seen destroyed, the families torn apart by the spreading corruption. You remember the promise you made when you began this journey. You reach the base of the pillar, the Starstone now looming directly above you, its dark pulse growing faster and more frantic. The manifestation makes one final, desperate assault, throwing everything it has at you, unleashing power that seems to shake the very foundations of reality itself. In the moment when all seems lost, when darkness threatens to consume everything, the fellowship acts as one, and the mountain trembles with the force of their combined will. As the stone shatters and dissolves into ash, a wave of pure radiance erupts from the mountain's heart, washing across the world like the first light of a new dawn breaking over mountains untouched by shadow. The light carries with it a warmth so profound, so deeply comforting, that it feels like an embrace from the world itself. You stand at the precipice of the volcanic crater, watching as the darkness that has clung to the land for so long begins to recede like shadow fleeing from flame. The sky above transforms from oppressive charcoal to the softest, most hopeful gray, and somewhere in the distance, you hear birds singing for the first time in longer than you can remember. Your heart swells as you look around at your companions, their faces illuminated by the golden glow that now fills every crevice and valley of the world. Each of them wears an expression of wonder mixed with exhaustion, the weight of their sacrifice still fresh upon their shoulders. You reach out and grasp the nearest hand, squeezing it gently, and a knowing smile passes between you. The darkness is retreating. The realm is being reborn. But in your joy, a shadow of sorrow remains. One member of your fellowship is missing, lost to the darkness during the final moments before the stone's destruction. You close your eyes and send a silent prayer into the spreading light, hoping that somewhere in the receding shadows they might find peace. The group stands in quiet contemplation, mourning even as they celebrate, and the moment carries a bittersweet beauty all its own. Then something miraculous happens. The light begins to shimmer and dance, coalescing into visible forms at the crater's edge. Spirits of pure luminescence emerge from the radiance, beings of such gentle power that they seem almost like living starlight. And between them, cradled gently as though by invisible hands, appears a figure you thought lost forever. Your fallen companion, whole and unharmed, is returned to you by forces of light that even now you struggle to comprehend. They emerge from the glow slowly, deliberately, as though stepping from one world into another, and when they finally reach solid ground, their eyes are clear and filled with wonder. You rush forward without thinking, your fatigue forgotten in this moment of impossible reunion. The others follow, and soon all of you are embraced together, tears streaming freely down weathered cheeks. The words you speak tumble over one another, joyful and confused and grateful all at once. Your companion speaks of being held in a space between darkness and light, of experiencing a peace they had never known before, of being surrounded by compassion even in the deepest shadow. They were never truly lost, they tell you, because the light was searching for them all along. The spirits of luminescence begin to fade gradually, their work complete, returning to the great radiance that now suffuses the world. But their presence lingers in your heart, a reminder that there are forces of good and healing working in the world, even when all seems lost. The mountain itself begins to quiet, its trembling ceasing, and a profound peace settles over the landscape like snow falling gently on still water. As night falls for the first time in the new age, stars begin to emerge in the clearing sky, more brilliant and numerous than any of you have ever witnessed. They twinkle and dance like distant cousins of the very light that saved your companion, that destroyed the darkness, that gave your realm a second chance at life. The air smells of renewal and possibility, of rain and growing things and hope finally fulfilled. You settle together on the mountainside, watching as the light continues to spread across the world in all directions, touching distant forests and sleeping villages and ancient ruins. Crops will grow again. Children will laugh without fear. The world will remember what it means to live under stars that bring joy rather than dread. Through tears of joy and relief, you gather with your fellowship, whole once more, and witness the world awakening to a light it has not known in 1,000 years. The roads that once felt heavy with dread now shine beneath your feet, and as you walk toward home, you realize that the greatest journey has been the bonds forged with those at your side. The path winds gently through valleys where spring flowers have begun to bloom in colors you had nearly forgotten existed. Each step carries you closer to the lands you departed from what feels like a lifetime ago, though only seasons have truly passed. Your companions move beside you with a quietness that speaks of deep understanding. Words are no longer necessary between you. The Starstone's destruction has left an echo in your souls, a connection that will bind you forever. The first village you encounter seems almost unreal in its normalcy. Children play in dusty streets while merchants arrange goods in their stalls. An elderly woman sweeping her doorstep pauses and looks up at your weathered faces. Recognition dawns slowly, then joy floods her expression. She calls out to others, and soon the village gathers, pressing bread and water into your hands, their gratitude spilling forth in waves of warmth. Word spreads faster than any horse could carry it. As you journey onward, each town and settlement greets you with torches lit and bells rung in celebration. The darkness that once crept across these lands has lifted completely. Crops grow tall and healthy in fields that had lain barren. Livestock thrives. The people move through their days with a lightness that had been stolen from them, now miraculously restored. Your arrival in the great city feels ceremonial, though you sought no grand reception. The kings and rulers gather in the central square, their expressions mixing awe with genuine respect. They offer you titles and lands and riches beyond measure, but you decline with gentle firmness. Some treasures cannot be purchased or claimed. The knowledge that you have saved their world from endless night is reward enough. That evening, as the official celebrations wind down, you find yourself in a quiet garden with your fellowship. Here, away from the crowds and the speeches, the true weight of your journey settles upon you. You think of the mountains you crossed, the creatures you faced, the moments when hope seemed impossibly distant. You remember the times when you questioned whether you would see home again, whether the sacrifice would be worth the cost. One of your companions places a hand on your shoulder, and you turn to find eyes reflecting the same mixture of sorrow and joy that lives in your own heart. Words pass between you without sound. You have all lost things on this journey. You have all been forever changed by what you have witnessed and endured. Yet you have also gained something precious beyond measure. You have known true friendship forged in fire and darkness. You have learned that courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to move forward despite it. You have discovered that together, even the most impossible tasks can be accomplished. The garden grows cooler as night deepens. Servants bring soft blankets and warm drinks that smell of honey and herbs. You settle into chairs arranged in a circle, your fellowship complete and whole. Stories begin to flow, quiet recollections of moments that seemed unbearable as they occurred, but now carry an almost beautiful weight. The stars emerge overhead, and you notice immediately that they shine with an intensity that mirrors the Starstone's final moment of brilliance. The darkness has truly gone. The light has returned to this world in forms both celestial and earthly. In the hearts of people, in the bonds between those who have suffered and triumphed together. As time passes, your companions drift toward rest, their heads tilting back as exhaustion from the long journey finally claims them. But you remain awake a while longer, watching the stars, feeling the earth beneath you, breathing in the scent of growing things and peace. As twilight falls on the first evening of a new age of peace, you sit beneath stars that shine brighter than ever before, grateful for the fellowship you found, the trials you overcame, and the future now stretching before you like an open road toward endless possibility.